Welcome everyone to our Posh podcast. This is episode 49, the official 49, but that means that we have recorded 50 shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of that. That's awesome.
Because our introduction doesn't count, but that was basically, this is number 50. But don't get confused, it's episode 49. Welcome my beautiful co-hosts,
Hello.
Marcella and Whitley.
Hi.
And we welcome back Ashley Cook with
Yes.
was a trauma therapist with, what is your clinic called? Tell us again.
Compassionate Solutions.
In South Lake, Texas.
Yes.
And you specialize, and we're going to jump right in. So you specialize in dual diagnosis patients, correct?
Yes.
And would you say that that is way more complicated than if someone gets diagnosed with one problem, correct?
Yes.
Because it's compounded with two problems. So, if anyone, go listen to episode 48 where Ashley shares her story and her how she decided to go into this field and become a therapist and her own experiences with trauma. In this episode, like how many mental illnesses can one person have?
Oh gosh, there's not a limit.
There's not.
Oh, wow.
Mm-mm.
So on
But usually, so diagnoses, some can overlap with others, and so usually you don't have more than like 5.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone with more than 5. And
Wow.
usually you have to meet full criteria for a diagnosis to actually have the diagnosis. You may have features of other
Yeah.
diagnoses. So a lot of times if you're like looking at psychological testing, it'll say like borderline features or narcissistic features, meaning
Okay.
they don't meet the full diagnosis for that, but the characteristics
It's
are still
there.
there. Yeah.
So a dual diagnosis, like what you specialize in, what does that exactly mean?
So usually for our clinic, that means that they either have some type of addiction, either alcoholism or, addicted to whatever, and they have trauma or anxiety, depression, bipolar, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got the addiction as one side of it, and then you've got the mental health as the other side of it.
Mhm.
That's what dual diagnosis is.
And what are the symptoms
Of which one?
of a dual diagnosis? So basically you find someone that is, like say Nicolette
Mhm.
comes to you who is addicted to, she was addicted to alcohol and pills
Mhm.
and then got diagnosed with bipolar.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's actually, would you count that as 3 or is it just 2 because the addiction
You would just still say dual diagnosis.
because,
Mhm.
okay. It's just so,
It can be kind of confusing.
yeah, it's, I tried to look it up and I was just like, wow, there's so much to that whole thing
Mhm.
that is amazing. And it's like the symptoms were interesting to me and I was going to go through them a little bit because I think people can recognize that sometimes in themselves or in
Mhm.
their children or in their spouse, because the symptoms that I found out about are like they withdraw themselves from friends or family.
Mhm.
Would you please help us understand, like,
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
How, do you ever get frustrated, like when people might diagnose themselves, like with like say they have like mood swings and they're like, well, I'm bipolar.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do you feel? Like, I'm just curious because I think some people
Jump to conclusion.
they use it as an
Yeah,
excuse?
and
Yeah.
I don't want to be disrespectful to people who actually like have the issue. And I think there's a lot of people who fall on like, well, I'm depressed or I'm bipolar or I'm this without actually being diagnosed.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see that often?
No, however, not in the in our office,
But outside.
but outside, like in personal relationships.
Mhm.
If I hear someone say that, I'm like, okay, well,
Come on.
because bipolar,
you're not.
Yeah.
Right, and I would imagine that actually being bipolar is something really serious. And I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of people are just like, well, I'm bipolar.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
How do you
or
WebMD.
OCD, or
Yeah.
yeah. No, that does happen a lot, and it can be frustrating when you hear people just use it as oh, because I'm up and down, I must be bipolar. Yeah,
Right.
no, it's not that.
Right, because
Yeah.
I would imagine it's actually very serious. Like
Well-
more serious than just saying like, "I had a mood swing today."
Well,
Right.
actually, that's interesting that Marcella brought that up because I didn't tell her about this, but
Oh.
it was like when I researched it, bipolar came up as that it is a disorder that's actually very common.
It is.
And I was actually going to ask you the same exact thing because when things are common, very much like Marcella said, no disrespect to the people that actually are diagnosed
Sure.
with it and have it. But when there's anything, like even any kind of thing that is very common,
Mhm.
you find that very often that people
Yeah. and-
diagnose themselves and just use it as even a flippant comment sometimes, like kind of,
right.
well, I'm bipolar. But
Well, and it's very common, but it's still a very small percentage of the population. Like we do have to keep that
Oh.
in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know the exact statistic of
Mhm.
bipolar disorder, but it isn't like 50% of the population is bipolar. No,
but that's very
still a
interesting
small
too that you
percentage.
say that. That's very good to know.
And also I see a lot of bipolar because bipolar tends to be very, very common in the addiction world. So if you're dealing with an addict, a lot of times they are bipolar. And that's why they're using because of the mood swings and they're trying to find some stability and they don't know they're bipolar. And so they start using so we call it comorbid.
Okay.
Comorbid, meaning they are likely to both happen at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Like
Like
being
hand in hand.
Yes, they go hand in hand. Like I would say out of the clients that I have that are addicts, I would say probably 70-80% are bipolar.
And what would because you always hear bipolar saying like extreme highs and lows. Like, is there anything besides like that can really show if somebody is truly like bipolar?
Yes. So what I have found the most is that people confuse what mania is. So they'll be like,
Yes.
oh, I get depressed, but I don't have any manic symptoms. Well, that may not be true because manic symptoms can come out in different ways. So, we call it hypomanic, meaning a step below manic. That can just be extreme irritability or little things setting a person off, like extremely frustrated. Or it can be kind of having that hyper feeling, but not like, oh, I'm, going to try to jump off the roof type
Right.
thing.
Mhm.
Most people think of manic as like crazy.
Mhm.
And there's lower levels of mania.
Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But I recently just saw a commercial, it's the very first like mania commercial I've ever seen, and she is like a mom and she's baking a cupcake, and then it's like saying that she's like manic, so she makes like
Mhm.
500.
Oh.
And it's like talking about, I've never seen a commercial for mania before, but it's for like I guess a prescription. But
Mhm.
I was like, whoa. But I don't know if that would confuse people. Like, you don't always bake 500 cupcakes when you're manic.
It can come out in different ways for different people, and that's
Right.
what I think people get confused. Like, other symptoms of being manic is just not being able to sleep, feeling a lot of energy, a burst of energy, but then you kind of crash.
Mhm.
So that's the problem with bipolar is a lot of times people like feeling hypomanic or manic, but then when they crash from that,
They feel
they
depressed.
get very
Mhm.
depressed.
Mhm.
They
So would
you
that
know.
be why someone might like get addicted
Use.
to meth
correct.
or something?
Mhm.
Because meth makes you extremely
Mm-hmm.
high. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, not high, but I mean like that crazy like energy burst.
Yep.
For
Mhm.
hours.
Because bipolar people don't like the depressed side of it. They only like the manic side of it.
Right.
That's not,
Hmm.
the depressed side's not fun. And so a lot of times, yes, they'll take
Right.
an upper,
right.
some type of stimulant, meth, Adderall, cocaine, whatever.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So are there like misdiagnoses of bipolar a lot? Do you see that? Or is it-
Yes. So that happens when you have a person that's using, and if a person's using, they're going to act erratic. They'll get depressed or they'll get super high because
Mhm.
they're using. And so a lot of times if a physician or a therapist doesn't know that they're using drugs, they can get misdiagnosed as bipolar because of the drugs. Now, if you remove the substances and they're still acting that way, then you can diagnose them with bipolar.
Oh wow. I read something when I was because of you looking up all these different symptoms and different mental issues or whatever. I saw something and I wanted to ask you what you felt like, because obviously, I mean, you are the one that's trained, and I read this and it blew my mind last night. I was like, oh my goodness, because they say that there's a challenge when it's a dual diagnosis sometimes, because you have to, I don't know.
You have to treat both at the same time. You cannot treat one without the other. That's the main thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, this is a question I wanted to ask you, as I find it mind-boggling. Which happens first? This is the question. Can drug use cause mental illness?
Yes. It can. Okay. Yes, it can bring out something that was dormant. So, you hear people talk about, the drugs made them schizophrenic. Well, no, the drugs didn't make them schizophrenic, but they could have had a genetic underlying disorder that the environment of using brought out. So, they could have had that genetic component of schizophrenia, never use drugs, and it never comes out.
Oh my God, that's really scary.
So this is where, I'm sorry, but everyone knows how I feel. I don't believe in drugs. I know that now pot is legal everywhere and becoming legal more and more places, and I get it, and I'm not judging. I just don't believe in it, period. So then I read this, and it really freaked me out completely, because the smoking marijuana is linked to schizophrenia.
It is.
Sorry, your accent just made me laugh.
Mariana?
You were lucky I didn't say it.
I had
how I
drink
usually
in my mouth. I don't spit it out.
Sorry.
They used to
Mary
make fun
Jane.
of me because I now say it right, but schizophrenia, I don't say it like that usually.
Yeah, tell everybody how you say it.
Yeah.
Because in my language we say it's schizophrenia.
She said it the first time, and I was like, what is schizophrenia? We were
Sorry, I'm
dying.
not making light of this, but still,
Yeah.
it's really
It
funny.
makes sense though, like schnitzel.
Yeah.
It's not schnitzel.
Right.
Right.
So that makes it makes sense. We'll
Yeah.
just still pick on you out
Yeah.
of love.
Okay, so smoking
I'm used to it.
marijuana.
Linked to schizophrenia. So it says, what if your genetic makeup could influence how your body reacts to drug abuse, causing mental illness in some but not in others? A recent study reported that individuals with a particular variant of the COMT gene may be more likely to develop schizophrenia if they smoke marijuana regularly. As many as 1 in 4 people may have this variant. That's crazy.
They
Yeah.
could.
I
They
mean,
could.
that is unbelievable to me.
But so that means that when you're a kid, I'm assuming, and if you are in high school or something
Right.
and you smoke weed with your friends, you might even be hurting your future because it could.
Exactly
make
my
you
point. That's
feel
what I've
crazy.
been saying. But I never knew that this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable to me. I'm like, why is that not all over the news?
Makes money.
That's a good question.
I mean,
Well, and I think that it's getting more out there, but unfortunately, mental health and addiction awareness is not the best. I mean, it's getting better. People
Yeah.
are getting more educated and understanding it
Mhm.
more, but still people aren't investing in trying to find the evidence and the science and the research behind it.
right.
Yeah.
Is
It's
that
unbelievable.
frustrating for you?
Very.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, it was my mind was blown when I found that yesterday. I was like, what did I just read? I mean, unreal.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of children too?
No,
No,
I
no
don't. I
kids.
don't see. The youngest I will take is 12.
That's still pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not addicts though.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. I can't do little kids.
No.
I just can't do it. No. I tried for a little bit to do like the play therapy thing, and it just wasn't for me. Yeah.
because it's hard or because it's just not?
It's hard, and I'm not one to like, sometimes I feel like, and this is me being biased, so I know that people will disagree with me, but I feel like some types of therapy with children can be a little too interpretive. Like, I think that, a kid will do something and they will assume that, oh, that must mean this. And I don't like to do that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like that's almost making an assumption that this kid is feeling this certain way and maybe they're not.
Still developing.
Yeah.
I can see how that could happen, though.
Yeah.
That makes totally sense. Depression and anxiety. Like, do you believe in how to improve that? Do you believe in natural ways? Or I feel like medication can make this way worse.
It can. I believe that getting on the right medication and having an appropriate evaluation by a good psychiatrist is what's going to be the most helpful. Research says therapy plus medication is the most beneficial. But I'm also very conservative on meds too. I think that therapy alone can help with depression and anxiety. And now, if you have a true like bipolar disorder,
You have to
you're gonna have to be on some type of medication. Yeah.
And there is, so I know that there's certain medications that make people feel like, I get confused because people will be bipolar, be depressed, and then they get on medication and it makes it worse. Is there, and then for personally, I have heard one drug the same, and everyone says like Lexapro makes them feel crazy. Is there certain medications that you're completely against, or does it, like, do you have to be so careful with who takes what and how to like?
It really depends on a person's brain chemistry.
Oh my gosh.
That's why a lot of people will have to, myself included in that. I've tried various medications and it took forever for me to find which one works well for me.
Oh my gosh.
So
Seems like a lot.
Now
It is
I
a
have,
lot.
and I'm just gonna share it. I would love to hear your input on it, but I found some ways to improve depression and anxiety without medications, and I found it very interesting. And the number one thing was limit your time on Facebook and social media, I would say, which I can see why that would cause anxiety and depression. I mean, when you get that involved in it. So they're actually saying there's a article about this Facebook making us lonely, and it confirms that people have gotten lonely and depressed and anxious from being too involved in social media, which is really scary.
because the whole comparison trap thing starts happening. You start comparing your life and to other people's, and people put their best on social media. We all have to remember that.
Right.
And oh well, I don't have that house, I don't have that husband, I don't
That
have
car.
and so that can play into a lot of anxiety and depression.
I think, you just have to take break. Like, I have to, even though we're supposed to, like, with our business, be on it all, like, often. It gets, like, mostly where I'm like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Like, you almost feel like crazy. Like, how could these people, like, what are they doing? Like, how can they do all that? And you're just like, oh my God, I fail because I can't keep everything
Like all the
perfect.
traveling that people get to do. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah, it's crazy.
It's very
I've started
confusing.
looking at houses lately, and around Grapevine and South Lake and all that, it's very expensive. And I see all these amazing houses, and then I see what I can afford, and I'm like, what? What do these people do?
Yeah.
Have you driven down Dove Road?
Yeah, I actually live on Dove
You
Road
do?
right now.
Yes. Nice.
So
I mean, it's crazy, unbelievable.
Yeah, I can see that. And I always feel bad for kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I always say, as an adult, it's hard. And then being a teenager is hard enough. And then you add the social media stuff to that. And then it just gets really confusing. And I feel it's hurting their like social skills.
That too.
I agree.
It's
I'm
concerning.
huge. Screen give it to me. I take screens at night. Like, I just don't allow it at all.
My little brother's kind of an asshole now. I love him, but he is. He just keeps his headphones on and doesn't talk. And I'm like, Kason, like, I'm only here for 3 days.
Right.
Like,
He's
do you
like,
want to go
whatever.
hang out?
How
And
old
he's
is
just
he
like,
now?
He'll be 13 August 3rd. Yeah. And he's like, I don't want to stay in your room anymore. I know he's old, but I'm like, stay little. But now he's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
Just
Thankfully, my son, he doesn't care for, I mean, he'll do the iPad, but he'll do it for 30 minutes and then he limits himself. So
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
good.
blessed.
That's good. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, it also says stop living someone else's life. You get depressed, I think, when you live someone else's dream. Like
Mhm.
when you think you have to do this or that or the other. Like even your parents can like have a certain expectation of you, whatever, what school you're supposed to go to, what you're supposed to do with your life. And some
Oh, for
people,
sure.
they really want to do that instead of living
What they want.
what
to
Yeah.
do.
they want to
Mhm.
do. Yeah. They say write it out. Private diary, like writing is super helpful. I know it helps me a lot. Writing is, I mean, they say this. I don't know if you agree with this, but they say like even in marriage or marriage therapy, they tell you to write it out because if you are fighting, everybody is like aggressive towards each
Mhm.
other. But if you're writing and the person has a chance to read it and take it in and then maybe respond, it's much calmer.
Well, so I have two thoughts on that. One is, yes, I agree with writing it out. That is a way of what we call in the therapist world of externalizing. So that's getting the emotions out without keeping them in, which is helpful. Do I think that then giving that to your spouse to read? Probably not, because that takes away from communication. I would say writing it out to get out that initial frustration is good, but then put that to the side and come back to it
And
when
don't
you're
give it to
calm.
them.
No, I wouldn't. I would say I personally would suggest getting it out, giving yourself 30 minutes, to calm down, and then actually coming back together and talking face to face.
Okay, so really fast, my best friend has been in couples counseling, and they got told about the diamond method of
Oh yeah.
arguing, and it's supposed to be oh my gosh, now I'm not going to say it right. Hold on, I have to find. It's like where there's a person, like whoever in the marriage, the relationship is like, it's silly to say, but they're like, I want to have a diamond conversation, meaning like they're the ones who call the conversation. You're supposed to sit down and you go through like what's happening, how it makes you feel. The other person's not allowed to talk unless it's like a calm response or something. And then they're supposed to sleep on it. Like you can't even like have the fight. And I was like, I told her, I go, who can naturally have that happen? Like let somebody like dig
I
in.
have not heard of this, and
No,
never heard of
my
it either.
initial reaction is
That doesn't
no.
work, right? I was like, how could that?
I
I'm gonna
couldn't
find
sleep
it for you because
with that in my head. I couldn't sleep.
I can't. I know me
yeah.
neither.
Okay,
Like,
look,
I would
look,
not
look.
like that.
Okay, this is what it looks like. You never heard of that?
No.
I'm gonna
I mean,
read
I
it.
get thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and how those are connected, but yeah, no.
Yeah, because then it's like it's supposed to. That's the diamond. That's like the graphic. And then this one says the process. There's rules, and it says one agenda, one speaker, one conversation. You can be like, you can disagree because I just heard it. She says it's starting the conversation. A, you say it's now a good time. Is now a good time to have a diamond conversation? And I was like, who would
sounds so
actually take that
unrealistic.
seriously?
Like seriously.
And then B says, yes, how's a good time? And then it says, or no, now is not a good time. Can we talk? And you name a time and place later. And then it says, while you're having the conversation, phase one, it says speaker. I'm like, well, phase one, speaker uses the diamond model to share their experience. Listener
Wow.
reflects back verbatim what the speaker said. This continues until the speaker has the experiences of saying all there is to say, that's it. So you're supposed to like literally repeat so the person knows you're listening. Hold on, I'm not done. And then phase two, it says the listener asks questions. Goal is to understand how the speaker can think and feel the way they do about the identified behavior. Questions are not leading. Questions do not assert the listener's agenda. Questions should clarify, explain, and provide more information. questions should be essay questions rather than fill in the blank or true or false questions. Examples: help me understand the connection between A and B. What made it difficult or easy for you to blank? And what about X made you think Y? And then phase 3, I think I shouldn't send me that one, but phase 3, I think you're supposed to like go to bed and sleep on it, and you're supposed to go about your day as normal. So if you have children, we go through the day. We're not allowed to have drama. You sleep on it, and then you can discuss later. Have you ever?
Do you look at Ashley's face? No. She's like, no.
I say, so some of the things you were talking about that it says are good principles. Like I understand like the extent of, you know, asking clarifying questions and how are they related, but the whole method of then don't talk about it, then sleep on it, then that's
bring it out and then bury it again.
It just seems very unrealistic, and actually it seems like very fake. Like I would feel so
that's a lot
weird.
Of facets.
Yeah.
Well, I know personally,
jokes.
I'm extremely.
I just got it.
A what?
So that's a lot of facets, like in a diamand, like
diamond
facets.
Oh, I'm so stupid.
I didn't get it either.
Really, the smart one. I was looking at that when she told me, and she said that she knew someone who does this, and their marriage is great. And I'm like, but I don't know personally. I don't think I have. I am extremely emotional. I think talking to me is like talking to a brick wall. It is my point, and I can't, like, the fight will go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I have to always have, like, I could never do that ever.
Yeah.
No.
And when she told her therapist, like, that seems very, like, unrealistic, she said that she's emotionally immature. Like, if you cannot do this, means you're emotionally immature.
Ashley, I love your eyes.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
Okay, good. Because I was like, well, then
I don't want to be mature.
I'm super emotionally immature then, because I could never do that.
No.
Yeah. So my thing is, you know, I do marriage therapy too. And that was what my training was in. First of all, we never learned about this. It could have been new. I don't know. But I don't think that there is any one way that a couple has to do this formula and it's good. No, like my approach with couples is when they come in is to find what works for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what works for one couple is not going to work. It may not work for the other.
I didn't think so.
No,
Like,
because everyone is different. Right, because everyone's different. And what I touched on, I mean, me and my husband are together 18 years and we have a super happy marriage. And what has worked for us is the writing. And I do, and it's not an attack writing at all. It's more like I do more of the writing.
But I don't think you ever write through.
It's usually, you know, there are all these things that are great, but this is an issue, and
or this hurt me.
This hurt my feelings, or this, we need to do this different, or something, whatever. And then I do send it in the way that when he receives it, he can read it and think about it, and not like, because I am super sensitive. So if you come at me with anything, I will cry. But I will, like, it will hurt me so bad that I can't go back. So there I go. That way he will have a chance to read it and think about it. And he usually replies, and it's always been a wonderful way for us. Like, it's been the best way for us.
That's great then.
To deal with it. Because my husband is like, he reacts. He's like, this. So if I say something, he won't even think about it. He'll just react. And then I'm like,
and nothing gets handled for you
guys.
Yeah. But you guys don't really fight ever.
We don't. Yeah. We fight very, very. The more we're together, the less we fight, actually.
So what is, like, the biggest thing you see, like, with marriage or couples? Like, what is, like, the biggest problem?
Communication, obviously. Probably, again, I don't see a lot of couples, to be fair. Okay. I see some. The couples that I help are usually dealing with some type of trust issue, whether it be infidelity or, you know, some type of betrayal, or just something has created some insecurity in the marriage.
Is that because you've had, like, experience in it and it's easy?
No, that just happens to be what comes in my office.
I was like,
no, that's funny.
Wow.
Yeah, I do have to check myself with that, though, when I do see couples and stuff, because, I'm sure you probably have heard of this, but countertransference. So the therapist reacting to.
Oh.
So
Okay.
I have to be careful about that.
Have you
sometimes.
had couples where there has been infidelity that they work through it?
I'm trying to run through my head. No.
Okay, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just telling you what I've seen happen. The only way a couple can make it is if the other partner then also has an affair, and then somewhere they come back together. That's the
You've
only
seen that
way.
one time.
No,
So-
I've seen it a couple times.
Oh.
I wouldn't recommend that.
No, just saying that's the only way I've seen it.
I don't know if that works.
I'm just saying. Other way, I mean, usually it doesn't work.
I
but-
know that there are couples that have. Again, I see a very small amount of couples. That's not my specialty. But the one couple I did have, it was actually the wife that was unfaithful, and they didn't work.
Mm-mm.
I tried, and they tried, and
It didn't end up working.
happen.
So tell me, if you could, what has been your biggest success story and your biggest disappointment story?
Nicolette
could.
for sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
she's
your
my
biggest
biggest,
success for sure.
Absolutely. I joke with her sometimes. I'm like, oh, you're my favorite client.
Well, yeah.
We're not
how could
supposed
she
to have
not?
favorites.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
My biggest disappointment would probably be actually a case that I just had, and I ended up firing the client. Actually,
What happened?
by the way, yes, therapists can fire
fire-
clients.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yep.
What happened?
He's an addict and a narcissist, and he continued to use and wouldn't follow any of my recommendations at all, and it started to get to the point where he was running me over in sessions and
Ooh.
being intimidating towards me, and
Oh god.
just his whole
You don't need that.
demeanor.
Yeah.
It just didn't
Was
go well.
this an adult or a
Yes.
teen? Okay.
Yeah, he was an adult, and loved his parents. Love his parents, and I think I tried to stick it out for them,
For them.
Mhm.
because they trusted me, and they were like, the only progress that he's ever made is with you. And I have told them. I actually had a family session with them not too long ago, and I just said, guys, I'm really sorry, and I've tried to stick it out as long as I can because I love you guys. I said, but this isn't going anywhere, and ethically for me, he's not making any progress and hasn't in a very long time. So
How long
I can't
did you have
continue
him?
to do this.
As a
2 years.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be
Mhm.
exhausting.
It was, and there were times where he, was making progress and he would listen, but then I don't know, probably the past 6 months, it was just he wouldn't do anything that was recommended to him anymore.
Well, wow. And
So-
I think, go ahead.
No, you go.
Go.
Oh no, I was just, like, do you like refer them to someone else?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes.
I didn't know. I was just
And because I brought it up in the last episode, and I've had people ask me before actually about it when I brought it up the one time, can you, and I don't explain it right because I don't think it was explained right to me. Can you explain what eye movement therapy is and what it does
I was gonna
and
ask.
what it's
Yeah.
for, and kind of go into that, because I have heard that it's very helpful. I obviously had a bad experience with it, but that was
Mhm.
me. But can you explain what that is? Because I think it's fairly new, right? Or no, maybe.
It's not, it's getting more clout now.
Mhm.
It's been around for a little bit, but I don't know exactly how long. But
Okay.
so EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so basically what's happening is that you are stimulating both sides of the client's brain and helping them process through things that maybe they're unaware of, or maybe that talk therapy is just not getting to. It's the most evidence-based, or one of the most evidence-based treatments for trauma but it can also be used for anxiety, depression, and other disorders as well. It can even be used with addicts in lowering their cravings. So if we do EMDR with a client that's having really bad cravings for their drug of choice, we can do an EMDR protocol to decrease those cravings, and it helps them significantly. So there's different ways to do EMDR. The most common way is to follow a person's fingers. But there's also other ways, you know, for instance, Holly and I have in our office, they're called tappers. And so you hold one tapper in one hand and one in the other, and it just vibrates back and forth. And so it's stimulating, again, both sides of your brain. So it kind of is like simulating the best way I'm going to try to explain this in the most non-clinical way. So basically it's like REM sleep. So in REM sleep, you're dreaming, right? So what EMDR does is simulates the REM sleep. When your eyes go back and forth in REM sleep, that's what EMDR is doing too. And it helps your brain process through events or situations that have created distress for the individual.
And how long does it take? Like, can you take us through like steps? Like if someone was new coming, like, is it everybody different? Does it like, how long does it typically take? Like,
so it depends. So it depends on if the client has how much trauma they have. So you've got some people have complex trauma. What we call complex trauma is just they've had lots of big T traumas, like big, huge, catastrophic traumas, and then they've had some little T traumas.
Okay.
And so you have to help them process through all of those. And then you could have a client come in that just had this one horrific event happen, and, you know, they could do a couple of EMDR sessions and they're good.
Okay.
It depends on the person.
What is the difference between talk therapy and, I mean, you're still talking, right?
You do. So with EMDR, you do a little talking. So you said take me through it. So if a client comes in and they're brand new and they're telling me their story, you spend several sessions getting to know the client, being able to bond with them, preparing them for EMDR, which just sounds like what was missing for you.
Yeah, because I think I only went twice, and then that happened, and I was like, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah. And it was dark, and it was like, holy, dark.
Like,
The lights were off. Yeah, it was
that's scary.
No, not right. Okay. Mine was not correct. So this is why I want to know, because I'm very curious.
Sure.
Yeah.
So me personally, and I know Holly, my business partner, does the same thing, is that we also spend several sessions, like, you know, identifying the story, identifying different targets is what we call them. Like, okay, these are the targets that we need to go through at some point. And then we spend a lot of time helping them identify coping skills and what we call grounding techniques. Because when you're doing EMDR, like the experience you had, sometimes very painful memories or emotions can come up. And we want you to be able to ground yourself from that and be able to work through it and not send you into a panic attack. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I spend several sessions with my clients building up their coping skills, getting them prepared for it, and then we go into it. Like I have a client that lost her son when he was 2. He died. I'm not going to go in there and start doing EMDR with her.
Yeah.
Day 2.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I saw her for probably 6 months before we started EMDR.
Wow.
Now, I know some therapists will jump right in. That's just not my style.
I like that. I think that, to be honest, I'll just be blunt, but I think that makes more sense because it was actually almost traumatic for me personally.
And you can re-traumatize someone.
Yeah. And so we're going back to your question. So when you go in for the first time, like explain kind of what happens like in the process of a session, maybe like the first one, like what happens.
Like an actual EMDR session. So the very first session you do is establishing a safe place, your safe or calm place. And so I would, guide you through this exercise. I would ask you to think about either real or imaginary, a place that you feel very calm and relaxed and at peace, and somewhere that you're by yourself, can't be with somebody else. And then I would have you go into high detail to explain what that place is, what you smell, what you see, what you hear,
Okay.
how you feel. And then after we've established that safe place, then we do the EMDR. And so we call it, I'm going to forget the term. Basically, we're installing that safe place into your brain so that your brain will recall that safe and calm place quicker. So that when, like, we even actually tag a word with it. So I'll say, you know, I'll guide you through this exercise. You'll tell me about your safe and calm place. And then I'll ask you, okay, give me one word that helps you remember or that you can associate with that safe and calm place.
Okay.
And you'll say the word, and I'll do EMDR to install that word into your brain with that safe and calm place. So
And
that
your
when
eyes
you say that,
are open or closed?
you can do it either way.
Okay.
So if you're following my fingers, your eyes have to be open.
Right.
I have some clients that, again, that use the tappers that close their eyes.
Okay.
And then I have some because there's lights on the tappers.
Mm-hmm.
And so they watch the lights go back and forth.
Okay.
You can do it either, whatever is most comfortable.
Okay. And do you have people that like would resist that? Like, how do you make yourself like open to getting that like in your brain? Without, because I feel like it's almost like meditation. Like, how do you?
Well, so I always encourage clients to do their own research on it so they know more about it.
Okay.
I give them my, I have a bunch of material to give people. And then I just kind of explain to them, because I've done EMDR myself. So I can say, okay, this is likely what may happen, what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we're going to do if that does happen.
Okay.
And also the most important part, which is where Nicolette's previous therapist went wrong, you always let the client have the control. Like, she can tell me, she can put up her hand at any point and I know immediately to stop. You're not, I would never try to coax her into keep going. No. In fact, I know her well enough now that I can see when she's doing EMDR where it's getting too much, and I'll be like, all right, we're good for today. Like, we're stopping.
Do people cry a lot? Like, is it very emotional?
Yes. And you also have to be careful because clients can dissociate, and that's a part of trauma. So dissociation meaning like, they will, I've had a client almost fall asleep on me. Or they will just, their brain completely goes blank. Like, we'll keep doing EMDR and they're just like, nothing's coming up. Like, everything's just blank. And that can be a form of that too.
And so then how do you deal with that part? Is it just, okay,
so
we have to
bring
stop.
them back out into talk therapy and then we do some more processing and then grounding techniques, and then we go back into it.
And try.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Is this therapy covered by insurance?
Depends. Yes, it can be. Some insurance companies will cover it. Some don't.
Is it expensive?
I don't take insurance.
Okay.
So I'm sure, I don't know all the ins and outs of that. But
But it can't, because I know that, I mean, what it sounds like it's such a long process, which I'm sure is, I mean, extremely beneficial, but it's like if someone does not have the income or the means, it's like, you don't want to go halfway.
Right.
To do that. So, but it is very interesting because I had said I had done one, which was terrible for me. But, and I don't tell people to not do it because I've heard that it's because of Nicolette really and Desiree, that it's actually extremely beneficial for people. So I always say, like, I just don't know the prices or like how that, if they can't afford it, like to wait maybe until they can, or just to not make it worse on people and to find someone
definitely
that's good.
And I always tell people this too, like, if they have an upcoming trip or vacation or something,
don't do it.
No, I'm not going to start them in on that. Like, I need to make sure that, for the next couple of weeks, they can come in consistently every week.
Now, can your patients call you at any time? Like, does Nicolette text you, call you, like, throughout the day?
She does, but that... So the appropriate response to that would be, I'm not supposed to be, picking up the phone or texting back at any point.
No.
However, there are some situations where I will have, if they need that extra attention, I'm willing to do it.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I probably could not be a therapist because I would get
No.
attached to everybody and be like,
Call me anytime.
call me anytime.
Come over anytime.
Yeah. I'd get too connected probably. Yeah.
But like, for instance, I mean, my clients are great. And
Yeah.
Nicolette, you know, she's respectful. She doesn't,
Right, of
she
course.
doesn't
Right.
overstep that boundary.
Right.
Like if she calls or texts me, I know it's because she really needs it.
you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good to know too. The
Yeah,
eye
don't
movement
take
therapy
advantage.
is so interesting to me because it seems like you're actually like going into someone's brain and doing like the left and right, like I don't know, following the finger or the thing. Like it's just like, whoa, how do you even know how
I
to
know.
do that?
So the point, it's still mind-boggling to me too. So the point of that is to eventually get through all the trauma
Mm-hmm.
and be actually healed from it, or be able to. Yes.
So the idea of EMDR is it's not like you're going to forget what happened.
Right.
Like it's
Right.
not, you know, but you'll remember what happened and you'll go, oh yeah, that happened, but you know,
I've moved forward.
I'm okay.
Like no more
Like it sucks,
post-traumatic
yes, but-
stress.
right. So
It's
it
almost like you're freed from that.
desensitizes- Correct. It
Oh.
desensitizes you from, you know, getting triggered. Like with someone who has PTSD, you could get triggered by random things.
Mhm.
A loud noise
That's me.
could trigger you. Right. Me too.
Yeah.
You know, it was really weird. I was watching a show the other night and it didn't have anything to do with anything, and I had a panic attack and I had no idea why. I was like, why did I just have a panic attack?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just because I think it was because there was a little girl in it and the bond that I had with this. You know, it's just randomly your brain will pick up on stimuli and get triggered. And
Mhm.
so what EMDR does is helps to reduce that.
Yeah.
So when that happened to you and you had a panic attack, then what? Like, are you able to get out of it quicker, or because you have had the therapy? Or?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
And I know what it is. Like
you're so self-aware.
yeah.
Mm.
So I know I know when my body is going into that response and what I need to do.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I feel like I have silent panic attacks. Like people don't even, like I deal with it on my own. But the
Mhm.
like yelling a lot. If there's something behind, like if I hear like loud noises or like
Mhm.
mostly screaming. Like when people are like screaming, I am super sensitive to that.
Mhm.
Remember that one time we were walking like in Arbor Hills and you're like, why are you so jumpy? I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm like having these random like spaz attacks when I hear a noise. It's just so bizarre.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Mine's like silence. I don't like silence.
Well, no.
It freaks me out. It does. I'm not like I don't know. I don't know how to do that. But I like noise. 'Cause
No,
if
I
I
like
if I like
noise.
quiet, I like
No, there's like
Y'all
so there's
know.
a difference I think betwing noise and then like like
like
loud.
a
startling,
okay.
Like
loud.
I'm used
when
to that, I guess, because
people-
my family.
but when people are screaming in anger, that is where I am like
Mhm.
I almost can't breathe. And I think that's from Andy because he was like a lion, like the like kind of like yours, like the in the
Yeah.
face, like where you're
Mhm.
like, oh my, like that is what freaks me out the most. Or when, because he would fight a lot, like fighting. I don't like if I feel like I'm like, what's going on? Like I feel like people are fighting all the time, but
Yeah.
nobody's fighting. I'm just like I have that
Mhm.
random.
Terrible. I think you need to go see Ashley. Actually.
Yeah, right. Ashley's like, no, I know.
That will be on your plan.
Yeah, it'll be on my plan in the future.
And with that, we thank you so much.
I
We're gonna be
know.
done. It went by so fast.
It
and
did go
we
by
thank
so
you
fast.
for
You have to
coming to
come
our
back,
show
yeah.
and give us your social media handles and your clinic. So when people need
Listen,
you,
yeah.
they can contact your clinic. And
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of me is my cell phone, 903-363-6516. You can Google us. We're Compassionate Solutions, and we're located in South Lake. And social media wise, I have Instagram, and it's Ashnacook, ASHNICOOK.
beautiful. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
so much.
you.
I love
Yeah,
that. And I
absolutely.
know this will help a lot of people
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I don't explain that right. And I know that now I can be like, go listen to 49.
Yeah.
I'll explain all that to you. And call Ashley.
Call Ashley.
Yeah.